right. Welcome to tacosthegeeks.com. Justin here, back with more interviews. And today we have actor, entrepreneur. You've seen him in a lot of films. I'm gonna get my Troy McClure on, just to name a few. Scream, Scooby-Doo, the recent Five Nights at Freddy. Everyone, please welcome Matthew Lillard. Thank you for joining us today.
Yay! Thanks for
And
the intro, man.
yeah, of course. And we got a lot to talk about because you have your Quest End line now. Recently was just announced that you guys are partnering up with a little bit for the critters out there, something a little bit for the critters, for the critical rollers out there. But I want to talk a little bit first about Quest End. Can you tell us a little bit of the origin of how that came about and how did you get into
Yeah.
this adventure?
Yeah, so I have another company called Beetle and Grimm's. I started like 6 years ago. We create high-end box editions of Dungeons and Dragons and different, we have all kinds of stuff now. All my partners have now quit their full-time jobs and are working full-time for Beetle and Grimm's. And within that, I a friend of mine named Justin, also Justin Ware, who's a screenwriter. His buddy was selling his company called Blue Run, which is a whiskey company. And Justin, to his credit, saw what I was doing with Beetle and Grimm's, going direct to customer and creating sort of a premium luxury goods for the geek community. And he saw what Tim was doing with Blue Run, which is a really premium whiskey experience. And both of us were going direct to customer. So Justin, to his credit, said, maybe there's a world in which we put these two things together. And thus Find Familiar Spirits was born. And basically what Find Familiar does, we started with a brand called Quest End, which is based around the RPG space, sort of high fantasy storytelling. Each bottle is a different character class. Each bottle is a continuation of an ongoing story across 16 different drops, and each bottle is a different flavor profile that's built for that class. And so that's Quest End. But Find Familiar Spirits is really a company that identifies fandoms that sort of live in a niche community and builds high-end premium spirit experiences around those communities, right? So we operate a little like, we always sort of explain it like we're like a movie studio. Like a movie studio can have an action comedy, it can have a rom-com, it can have an Academy Award film. We are the same thing for the spirit world. Like we find different fandoms and build verticals for those fandoms.
Oh wow! So that's actually really good because especially with people who play D&D and just looking at it, just looking at these bottles and the fact that you just told us that it has a story with it is actually pretty genius because now people can actually kind of have their own game set based off a little bit of the story, or at least have that as like a preset for their
Yeah.
actual games.
So the idea is that you join in the adventure, right? The
Mm.
story opens up with Saren. Our first drop was Paladin. Her name's Saren of the Pit. She's, this Paladin of Inksa, which all of this IP we created, and you follow her across this huge saga. And each version, like we released Warlock this summer, and Warlock, we just went over the story, and each story continues Saren's journey. But our idea is like, look, we're never going to compete with Bullets or Jim Beam or whatever
Yeah.
the great big whiskey brands are. We want to be the biggest brand in a community, right? So we want to be, for Dungeons and Dragons or RPG, we want to speak to that community, only that community. So we are never just delivering a bottle of liquid. We are also delivering something else that speaks to, that speaks to the community that's building for what they like.
And just even from a creative standpoint, is with especially with the drink, I just imagine because my cousin she plays like she's a DM in her, and I could just imagine everyone drinking whiskey, and it might help just a little bit with the creative process. Is everybody's
Yeah,
getting into their own characters with this?
it is. There's definitely Todd Stashwick, who's a streamer and a good friend of mine, was like, dude, the Venn diagram of whiskey drinkers and D&D players is a
Mm.
perfect circle. So it does make sense. Like we have all kinds of photos of people, shooting, like playing the game and having a sip. But yeah, however you play, however you drink, we hope, you just do it responsibly.
And that would transition to the new line with Sandcag, right? How did that come about,
Yeah.
especially with Critical Role?
So our first drop, Paladin, sold out in 2 weeks. We then opened up a waiting list, and we had 25,000 people on the waiting list in a week. So I was at a lunch with Jason Kletsky, who runs licensing for Critical Role, and we're buddies. And he was like, "Dude, would you ever want to work with CR and the team?" And for me, having seen two things, right? The people they are and how they operate in the world and how they move through the world, like I love. I think that they're the best people around, and they're a brand that we want to emulate. The way they're inclusive, they're full of love, and they're building things for their people in really authentic ways. And so and B, there's a ton of critters out there. And so the idea of being able to build something for a community that we respect in a way that can speak to them really made sense. And Jason basically was like, let's put together a deal. We went out, and I have a friend of mine named Chris Daly, who's a huge critter. And I went to Chris. I'm like, hey, Chris, if we were going to build something, say, for Critical Role, what would you like? What is there anything in the world? And he returned like a 10-page dossier of everything they drink in season 1 and season 2. We ended up picking Sandcakes because when it appears on the show, it's an iconic moment. It's really funny. And Matt Mercer does a great job of sort of describing it. The characters do, the players do a great job of playing that moment up. And so for us, it sort of became a no-brainer. And we've been building it about 8 months, and it goes on sale next week.
And how would you describe, especially with Quest and this one, how would you describe your first taste tests of the lines?
Well, it's a great question. So last Friday, we decided to fly out our master blender, who's a woman named Ali Ochoa. She's incredible. She's the head blender at Jefferson Whiskey. And what she did is she took what Matt and the cast did on the show and interpreted that into a blend of high-end premium whiskey, all of it over 4 years aged. It's cast aged in vermouth and sherry, and it's a blend of Indiana and Kentucky. So she flew out. She basically put together 10 different blends. She brought with her favorite. She brought a liter of her favorite 3, and we sat down with the entire cast on Friday. So it's our team and their team, and we tasted it. I mean, we all got together and sat around a table. Allie led us through the process of what she was doing, what she was attempting, how she was interpreting the words that came from the show. And one of them was sort of simple, one of them was really hot, and one of them was a great combination of both. And that ended up being bottle number 5. And so we ended up pulling the trigger on that recipe. And so that is what we were making. So the interesting thing is that, Justin, we're only on sale for 3 weeks. So it's a window sale. So it's super specific and really tiny. And so one of the things I keep trying to get out into the universe is that if you're interested, you should go to sandcakeshide.com and sign up, because we're releasing bottles sequentially. So if you buy early, you get the bottle early.
Okay.
Depending on what happens on the sale, right? It could be either, a couple weeks to get it or a couple months to get it. So we're trying to, sort of inspire people. If you're interested, if this sounds cool,
Yeah.
you should go check it out at sandcakeside.com.
And my last two final questions. The last one will be well, second to the last will be, you alluded that it's straight to the consumer.
Right.
And why was that more important than, I would say, just going the other route of just trying to find a market and just going to store, and why was
Yeah.
the straight consumer more important for you?
Yeah. So it's a great question. So it's really hard to get shelf space. Basically what we do is we've been around for 8 months and we've done 4 drops. You can't do that on the shelf, right? You build a brand, it stays on the shelf, and you're basically pushing that for the rest of your life. We're the exact opposite. We're super nimble. We're always moving. We're always sort of telling a new story. And so it doesn't really lend itself to being on the shelf. Also, it just makes it easier to deliver an experience, right? So in Sandcakes Hide, it comes like a medallion on it. It comes in a burlap sack that's, black stamped. It's got like a found journal, a 44-page found journal. You can't do that on a BevMo shelf. So that's why we build direct to customer.
And the final question, this is the one my cousin sent, and she wants to know what if whenever is your next campaign that you'll be a part of, do you have any idea of what character you might do?
I don't. I don't know what my next campaign is. We've been playing so my Beetle and Grimm's team, right? So we get away quarterly to sort of build company, right? And also part of that is to do what we live best because the company takes all of our efforts as friends. So we're always talking about the company, we're always building the company. And those weekends are about the company and sort of planning for next stages. The great thing about those weekends is we carve out time to play. So right now I can tell you I am playing in an Eberron campaign, a half orc city ranger
Oh,
who
nice.
talks like Bane. Sometimes he always talks like Bane. That's you live in the darkness. I live. I mean, so that's what I'm doing right now. I play a lot. I sit in a lot. I stream a lot. So I'm always sort of like at this point in my life, I'm more interested in kidding out the party than I am playing something specific for me. I want to make sure the party's good,
Mm.
and I'll play anything to make sure that happens.
Oh, thank you, Matthew. Appreciate it. And folks, check out Sandkeg May 1st and make sure you go to questendwhiskey.com to sign up and check out everything. Don't forget to keep it locked here at tacosandgeeks.com. Later days.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Justin. I appreciate it, man.